The Complete History of the United Kingdom, Part 1, Ancient Britain. From the first settlers to the Norman Conquest. Introduction. Thousands of years before the United Kingdom existed, the islands of Britain were home to prehistoric hunter-gatherers who crossed land bridges connecting Britain to mainland Europe during the last ice age. These early settlers gradually adapted to changing climates and landscapes, laying the foundation for one of the world's most fascinating civilizations. Over thousands of years, new communities arrived, bringing farming, new technologies, and different cultures. Monumental structures like Stonehenge and Avebury were built, leaving behind mysteries that continue to intrigue historians and archaeologists today. These prehistoric societies marked the beginning of Britain's long and extraordinary journey through history. Around the first millennium BC, Celtic tribes migrated into Britain and became the dominant people across much of the island. The Celts were skilled farmers, warriors, metalworkers, and craftsmen. They lived in tribal societies led by powerful chieftains and were deeply influenced by the Druids, who served as religious leaders, judges, and advisors. Although the Celts never formed a single united kingdom, they developed rich traditions, remarkable artwork, and strong cultural identities that would influence Britain for centuries. Their languages, myths, and customs survived in regions such as Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, where Celtic heritage remains an important part of local culture even today. The history of Britain changed dramatically in 55 BC when Julius Caesar launched his first expedition to the island. Although Caesar did not permanently conquer Britain, his expeditions introduced Rome to the island and demonstrated its strategic importance. Nearly a century later, in AD 43, Emperor Claudius ordered a full-scale invasion. Roman legions successfully established control over much of southern Britain, beginning nearly 4 centuries of Roman rule. The Romans built roads, forts, towns, baths, temples, and impressive engineering projects that transformed Britain's infrastructure. Cities such as Londinium, now known as London, became major centers of trade, government, and military administration. Roman Britain experienced significant economic growth through trade with the rest of the Roman Empire. Goods such as wine, olive oil, pottery, and luxury items arrived from across Europe, while Britain exported metals, wool, grain, and other valuable resources. The Romans also introduced written administration, organized taxation, advanced construction techniques, and improved legal systems. Christianity gradually spread across Britain during the later Roman period, planting the seeds of a religion that would profoundly shape British history. Despite these achievements, Roman rule faced constant challenges. Northern tribes, especially the Picts living in present-day Scotland, resisted Roman expansion. To protect the northern frontier, Emperor Hadrian ordered the construction of Hadrian's Wall around AD 122. Stretching across northern England, the wall became one of the greatest engineering achievements of the Roman Empire. It served as both a military defense and a symbol of Rome's determination to secure its borders. By the early 5th century, the Roman Empire was weakening under pressure from internal political instability and invasions across Europe. In AD 410, Roman forces withdrew from Britain to defend the empire closer to home. Without Roman protection, Britain entered a period of uncertainty, often referred to as the Early Middle Ages or the Dark Ages. Local leaders struggled to maintain order while new invaders arrived from across the North Sea. Among these newcomers were the Anglo-Saxons, consisting mainly of the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes from present-day Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. Initially invited by some British rulers as mercenaries to defend against attacks, they gradually established permanent settlements and expanded their control across much of England. Over time, Anglo-Saxon kingdoms replaced many of the remaining Romano-British territories. The Anglo-Saxon period saw the emergence of several powerful kingdoms, including Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria, East Anglia, Essex, Kent, and Sussex. Together, these kingdoms became known as the Heptarchy. Although they frequently fought each other for dominance, they also developed stable governments, legal systems, literature, and Christian institutions. Monasteries became important centers of education and learning, preserving valuable knowledge during an era often misunderstood as entirely dark or uncivilized. One of the greatest cultural achievements of Anglo-Saxon England was the spread of Christianity. Missionaries, including St. Augustine of Canterbury, arrived in AD 597 and successfully converted many Anglo-Saxon rulers to Christianity. Churches and monasteries flourished, becoming centers of scholarship, manuscript production, and education. Famous works such as the epic poem Beowulf emerged during this period, offering insight into Anglo-Saxon values, heroism, and society. The peaceful development of Anglo-Saxon England was disrupted during the late 8th century when Viking raiders from Scandinavia began attacking coastal monasteries and settlements. The infamous raid on Lindisfarne in AD 793 shocked Christian Europe and marked the beginning of the Viking Age in Britain. Over the following decades, Danish and Norwegian Vikings launched increasingly large invasions, seeking not only wealth but also land for settlement. The Viking invasions transformed British history. Large areas of eastern and northern England came under Viking control, forming a region known as the Danelaw. Here, Scandinavian laws, customs and languages blended with Anglo-Saxon traditions, leaving a lasting influence on English culture. Many modern English place names ending in by, Thorpe and Thwaite reflect this Viking heritage. One of the greatest heroes of this era was King Alfred the Great of Wessex. Facing overwhelming Viking invasions during the late 9th century, Alfred reorganized his army, built fortified towns known as burhs, strengthened England's defenses, and promoted education throughout his kingdom. After defeating the Viking leader Guthrum at the Battle of Edington in AD 878, Alfred negotiated peace while preserving Anglo-Saxon independence. His leadership laid the foundation for the eventual unification of England under later kings. During the 10th century, Alfred's successors gradually reconquered territories controlled by the Vikings and united the various Anglo-Saxon kingdoms into a single Kingdom of England. However, Viking influence remained strong, and in the early 11th century, King Canute of Denmark successfully conquered England, ruling a vast North Sea empire that included Denmark, Norway, and England. His reign demonstrated the deep political connections between Britain and Scandinavia during this period. Following Canute's dynasty, the English throne returned to the Anglo-Saxon royal family under Edward the Confessor. Edward ruled peacefully for much of the mid-11th century but left no direct heir. His death in January 1066 triggered one of the most significant succession crises in European history. Several powerful men claimed the English crown, including Harold Godwinson, Harald Hardrada of Norway, and William, Duke of Normandy. Harold Godwinson was crowned King Harold II shortly after Edward's death, but his reign lasted only a few months. In September 1066, Harold defeated the Norwegian king Harald Hardrada at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. Exhausted from battle, Harold then marched south to confront William of Normandy, who had landed on England's southern coast with a well-trained army. On the 14th of October 1066, the two armies met at the Battle of Hastings. After an intense day of fighting, Harold was killed, and William emerged victorious. The Norman victory forever changed the course of English history. William became William the Conqueror, introducing Norman rule, feudal government, castle construction, and major administrative reforms. The Norman Conquest transformed England's language, aristocracy, military organization, architecture, and relationship with continental Europe. The events of 1066 marked the end of Anglo-Saxon England and the beginning of a new era that would shape the future United Kingdom. Norman kings strengthened royal authority, built magnificent stone castles across the country, and introduced systems of government that influenced Britain for centuries. Their legacy would become the foundation for medieval England and eventually the emergence of the United Kingdom itself. Part 2. Medieval England. From the Norman kings to the Wars of the Roses, the Norman Conquest of 1066 marked the beginning of a new chapter in English history. After defeating King Harold II at the Battle of Hastings, William the Conqueror became King of England and quickly set about securing his rule. Although he had won the throne through battle, many Anglo-Saxon nobles refused to accept Norman authority. Rebellions erupted across England, forcing William to respond with military force. One of the most devastating campaigns was the Harrying of the North between 1069 and 1070, during which Norman armies destroyed villages, farmland and food supplies across northern England. This brutal campaign crushed resistance and established Norman control over the kingdom. William introduced the feudal system, a new way of organizing society and government. Under this system, the king owned all the land and granted estates to loyal nobles in exchange for military service and political support. These nobles, in turn, divided their land among knights who promised to fight for their lords whenever required. Most ordinary people were peasants who worked the land and paid taxes or labor in return for protection. Although the system created a clear social hierarchy, it also strengthened royal authority and helped maintain order throughout the kingdom. To secure England against future rebellions, William ordered the construction of hundreds of castles. Early castles were built using the motte and bailey design, consisting of a wooden tower on a raised mound surrounded by defensive walls and ditches. Over time, many were rebuilt in stone, becoming nearly impossible to attack with the weapons of the age. Famous castles such as the Tower of London symbolized Norman power and served as military bases, royal residences, and administrative centers. Many of these castles still stand today as reminders of Norman engineering and political control. One of William's greatest achievements came in 1086, with the completion of the Domesday Book. This extraordinary survey recorded almost every village, landowner, farm, and valuable resource in England. It allowed the king to collect taxes more efficiently and understand the wealth of his kingdom better than any previous ruler. Historians continue to regard the Domesday Book as one of the most valuable historical records from medieval Europe, because it provides an incredibly detailed picture of life in 11th century England. After William's death in 1087, his sons and later Norman kings continued strengthening royal government. However, tensions often arose between the monarchy and powerful nobles. These struggles became even more significant after the Plantagenet dynasty came to power in 1154 with the accession of Henry II. Henry II proved to be one of England's most capable rulers. He introduced important legal reforms, expanded the authority of royal courts, and developed the foundations of what later became the English common law system. His reforms ensured that justice was increasingly administered by the crown, rather than by local lords. Henry II's reign also became famous because of his conflict with Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Henry wanted greater control over the church while Becket defended its independence. Their disagreement intensified until, in 1170, 4 knights loyal to the king murdered Becket inside Canterbury Cathedral. The shocking event horrified Christian Europe. Although Henry denied ordering the killing, public opinion blamed him, and he was forced to perform public penance. Becket was later declared a saint, and Canterbury became one of Europe's most important pilgrimage destinations. During the late 12th century, England also became deeply involved in the Crusades, a series of religious wars fought in the Holy Land. The most famous English participant was King Richard I, better known as Richard the Lionheart. Renowned for his military leadership and courage, Richard spent much of his reign outside England, fighting during the Third Crusade against the Muslim leader Saladin. Although he became one of England's legendary warrior kings, his long absences and expensive military campaigns placed heavy financial burdens on the kingdom. Richard's younger brother, King John, succeeded him in 1199. Unlike Richard, John proved unpopular among both nobles and ordinary people. Military defeats against France caused England to lose important territories in continental Europe, while heavy taxation angered many landowners. John's disputes with the Pope further weakened his authority, creating widespread dissatisfaction throughout the kingdom. The growing conflict between King John and his barons reached a turning point in 1215. Rebel nobles forced the king to meet them at Runnymede, where he reluctantly agreed to the Magna Carta, one of the most important constitutional documents in world history. Although originally intended to protect the rights of powerful nobles, the Magna Carta established the revolutionary principle that even the king was subject to the law. It promised fair justice, protected certain legal rights, and limited arbitrary royal power. Over the centuries, these ideas inspired constitutional government, democracy, and the rule of law in Britain and many other countries. Despite the signing of the Magna Carta, political instability continued. However, later kings gradually accepted many of its principles while expanding royal administration. During the reign of Henry III, Parliament began to evolve as an institution where nobles, bishops, and eventually elected representatives could advise the king on taxation and national affairs. Although Parliament was still limited in power, its development laid the foundation for Britain's future parliamentary democracy. The reign of Edward I, beginning in 1272, marked another important stage in medieval British history. Edward was a determined military commander who sought to expand English authority across the British Isles. He successfully conquered much of Wales, constructing massive stone castles such as Caernarfon, Conwy, and Harlech to secure his rule. These impressive fortresses remain among the finest examples of medieval military architecture in Europe. Edward also attempted to conquer Scotland, leading to a long and bitter conflict. Scottish resistance was led by famous figures including William Wallace, whose victories inspired Scottish nationalism despite his eventual capture and execution. Later, Robert the Bruce achieved a decisive victory over the English at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, helping Scotland preserve its independence for several more centuries. In 1337, another major conflict began between England and France, the 100 Years' War. Although its fighting occurred intermittently over more than a century, the war profoundly shaped both nations. English kings claimed the French throne through family connections, while French rulers rejected these claims. Early English victories at battles such as Crécy, Poitiers, and Agincourt demonstrated the effectiveness of the English longbow, one of the most powerful weapons of medieval warfare. One of the greatest heroes of the 100 Years' War was King Henry V, whose remarkable victory at Agincourt in 1415 became one of England's most celebrated military achievements. Despite being heavily outnumbered, English archers devastated the French army, securing a legendary triumph that strengthened Henry's reputation as one of England's greatest warrior kings. However, England's successes in France were eventually reversed. The rise of Joan of Arc, a young French heroine who inspired French forces, transformed the course of the war. Her leadership revived French morale, allowing France to recover much of its lost territory. By 1453, England had lost almost all of its continental possessions, except the port of Calais, bringing the 100 Years' War to an end. While England fought abroad, another catastrophe struck at home. In 1348, the Black Death arrived from continental Europe. This devastating plague spread rapidly through towns and villages, killing an estimated 1/3 to 1/2 of England's population within only a few years. Entire communities disappeared, farms were abandoned, and the economy entered a period of severe disruption. Ironically, the dramatic loss of population improved the position of many surviving workers. Labor became scarce, allowing peasants to demand higher wages and better conditions. Landowners struggled to find enough workers, weakening the traditional feudal system. These social changes gradually transformed English society and contributed to the slow decline of medieval serfdom. Economic hardship and social tensions eventually led to the Peasants' Revolt of 1381. Led by Wat Tyler, thousands of ordinary people marched toward London demanding lower taxes, fair treatment, and greater freedoms. Although the revolt was eventually suppressed and Tyler was killed, it demonstrated that common people could challenge the authority of both the monarchy and the nobility. By the mid-15th century, political instability returned to England. Rival branches of the royal family, the House of Lancaster, represented by a red rose, and the House of York, represented by a white rose, competed for the English throne. Their struggle became known as the Wars of the Roses, a series of civil wars that lasted from 1455 to 1487. The conflict brought years of violence, changing alliances, and repeated battles between noble families. Kings were crowned, overthrown, imprisoned, and killed as each side sought control of England. The most famous Yorkist ruler was Edward IV, while the controversial Richard III became the last Plantagenet king. Richard's reign ended dramatically in 1485 at the Battle of Bosworth Field, where he was defeated and killed by Henry Tudor. Henry Tudor became King Henry VII, founding the Tudor dynasty and bringing the Wars of the Roses to an end. To unite the rival houses, he married Elizabeth of York, symbolically combining the red and white roses into the famous Tudor rose. His victory restored political stability after decades of civil conflict and marked the beginning of one of the most influential dynasties in British history. The end of the medieval period left England stronger, more centralized, and increasingly governed through institutions such as Parliament and the royal courts. The feudal system had weakened, trade was expanding, and new ideas were beginning to reshape society. These developments prepared England for the dramatic religious, political, and cultural transformations that would follow during the Tudor era.
Part 3. The Tudor Dynasty, the English Reformation, the Elizabethan Age, the Stuart Kings, the English Civil War, and the Glorious Revolution. The victory of Henry Tudor at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485 marked the end of the Wars of the Roses and the beginning of the Tudor dynasty, one of the most influential periods in British history. After decades of civil war, England desperately needed peace and stability. Henry VII understood this better than anyone. By marrying Elizabeth of York, he united the rival houses of Lancaster and York, symbolized by the famous Tudor rose. This marriage helped heal divisions within the kingdom and strengthened his claim to the throne. Henry VII spent much of his reign rebuilding England's economy and restoring the authority of the monarchy. He carefully controlled the power of the nobility, encouraged international trade, and improved royal finances. Rather than fighting expensive foreign wars, Henry preferred diplomacy and commercial agreements that increased England's wealth. His cautious policies left the crown financially secure, allowing his son to inherit a stronger and more stable kingdom. When Henry VIII became king in 1509, England entered one of the most dramatic periods in its history. Young, intelligent, athletic, and ambitious, Henry initially appeared to be the ideal Renaissance monarch. He enjoyed tournaments, music, learning, and military campaigns. However, it was his personal life that would permanently transform the religious and political landscape of Britain. Henry VIII married Catherine of Aragon, the widow of his older brother Arthur. Although their marriage produced a daughter, Mary, Catherine failed to provide the male heir Henry desperately wanted. Believing that England's future depended upon a son, Henry sought permission from Pope Clement VII to annul his marriage. The Pope refused, partly because Catherine was the aunt of the powerful Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. Determined to secure an heir, Henry took an extraordinary step. Instead of accepting the Pope's decision, he broke England's relationship with the Roman Catholic Church. In 1534, Parliament passed the Act of Supremacy, declaring the king to be the supreme head of the Church of England. This event became known as the English Reformation and forever changed the country's religious identity. The separation from Rome allowed Henry to marry Anne Boleyn, though this marriage also ended in tragedy. Anne gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth, but failed to produce a surviving son. Accused of treason and adultery, she was executed in 1536. Henry eventually married 6 wives during his lifetime, making his reign one of the most famous royal stories in history. His third wife, Jane Seymour, finally gave birth to a son, Edward, but she died shortly after childbirth. Following the break with Rome, Henry ordered the dissolution of the monasteries, closing hundreds of monasteries, convents, and religious institutions across England. Their wealth, land, and treasures were transferred to the crown or sold to loyal nobles. This dramatically increased royal income while permanently reducing the political influence of the Catholic Church within England. Although many people supported the reforms, others fiercely opposed them, leading to uprisings such as the Pilgrimage of Grace. When Henry VIII died in 1547, his 9-year-old son became King Edward VI. Because Edward was still a child, England was governed by powerful advisors. During his short reign, Protestant reforms accelerated. Churches removed many traditional Catholic practices, religious services began using English instead of Latin, and the Book of Common Prayer became central to English worship. These reforms strengthened Protestantism throughout the kingdom. Edward died in 1553, creating another succession crisis. His half-sister Mary I, the daughter of Catherine of Aragon, became queen. A committed Catholic, Mary attempted to restore England to the Roman Catholic Church. She reversed many Protestant reforms and ordered the execution of hundreds of Protestants who refused to abandon their beliefs. Because of these persecutions, history remembers her as Bloody Mary. Although Mary sincerely believed she was saving souls, her harsh policies made Catholicism deeply unpopular among many English people. Mary's reign ended in 1558, and she was succeeded by her half-sister Elizabeth I, one of England's greatest monarchs. Elizabeth inherited a country divided by religious conflict, financial problems, and political uncertainty. She approached these challenges with intelligence, patience, and remarkable political skill. Elizabeth established a religious settlement that created a moderate Protestant church while avoiding many of the extreme policies of previous rulers. Although religious tensions never disappeared completely, her compromise brought greater stability after decades of conflict. Under Elizabeth's leadership, England experienced a remarkable cultural and economic revival, known as the Elizabethan Age. The Elizabethan period became famous as a golden age of literature, exploration, science, and national confidence. England witnessed the rise of some of the greatest writers in history, including William Shakespeare, whose plays such as Hamlet, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet, and King Lear remain among the world's most celebrated literary works. Alongside Shakespeare, writers like Christopher Marlowe and Edmund Spenser enriched English literature, helping establish English as one of Europe's great literary languages. Elizabeth also encouraged exploration and overseas expansion. English sailors such as Sir Francis Drake, Sir Walter Raleigh, and John Hawkins explored distant oceans, established trade routes, and challenged Spanish dominance. Drake became the first Englishman to circumnavigate the globe, bringing wealth and prestige to England while demonstrating the growing strength of its navy. England's greatest military challenge during Elizabeth's reign came from Spain, then Europe's most powerful empire. King Philip II of Spain, a devoted Catholic, viewed Protestant England as both a religious and political enemy. In 1588, he launched the mighty Spanish Armada, a massive fleet intended to invade England and overthrow Elizabeth. The Armada campaign became one of the most famous moments in British history. English ships, commanded by experienced naval leaders, used faster and more maneuverable vessels to harass the Spanish fleet. Combined with severe storms that scattered the Armada around the coasts of Scotland and Ireland, England achieved an extraordinary victory. The defeat of the Spanish Armada greatly enhanced England's international reputation and marked the beginning of its rise as a major naval power. Elizabeth never married and had no children, earning her the title, the Virgin Queen. Her long reign brought relative peace, growing prosperity, and increasing national pride. However, her death in 1603 without an heir ended the Tudor dynasty. The English throne passed peacefully to James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England, uniting the crowns of England and Scotland under a single monarch. Although England and Scotland remained separate kingdoms with different governments, they now shared the same king. This marked the beginning of the Stuart dynasty and represented an important step toward the eventual creation of the United Kingdom. James I strongly believed in the divine right of kings, the idea that monarchs received their authority directly from God and therefore should not be challenged by Parliament. This belief increasingly brought the monarchy into conflict with Parliament over taxation, religion, and political authority. One of the earliest challenges of James's reign was the Gunpowder Plot of 1605. A group of Catholic conspirators, including Guy Fawkes, attempted to destroy the Houses of Parliament by exploding barrels of gunpowder beneath the building during the state opening of Parliament. The plot was discovered before it could be carried out, and the conspirators were arrested and executed. Today, the event is remembered every 5th of November with fireworks and bonfire night celebrations across the United Kingdom. When James died in 1625, his son Charles I inherited the throne. Charles continued his father's belief in absolute monarchy, but faced even stronger opposition from Parliament. His attempts to raise taxes without parliamentary approval and impose unpopular religious policies created growing resentment throughout England. Relations between Charles and Parliament deteriorated until 1642, when open war erupted between the king's supporters, known as the Royalists, and Parliament's supporters, known as the Parliamentarians or Roundheads. This conflict became known as the English Civil War, one of the most significant constitutional struggles in British history. The parliamentarian forces were eventually reorganised into the highly disciplined New Model Army, led by the brilliant military commander Oliver Cromwell. Through decisive victories at battles such as Marston Moor and Naseby, Parliament gradually defeated the Royalist armies. In an unprecedented event, King Charles I was put on trial for treason against his own people. Found guilty, he was publicly executed in 1649 outside the Banqueting House in London. For the first time in English history, a reigning monarch had been lawfully executed by his own government. Following Charles's execution, England became a republic known as the Commonwealth of England. Oliver Cromwell emerged as its dominant leader and later became Lord Protector. Although the monarchy had been abolished, Cromwell ruled with considerable authority. He strengthened England's military, expanded overseas trade, and defeated rivals in Scotland and Ireland. However, many people grew dissatisfied with his strict Puritan government and limitations on public entertainment. After Cromwell's death in 1658, political instability returned. Recognizing that Republican government lacked broad support, Parliament restored the monarchy in 1660, inviting Charles II, the son of Charles I, to become king. This event became known as the Restoration. Charles II's reign brought renewed interest in science, culture, and architecture. During this period, the Royal Society promoted scientific research, encouraging discoveries by figures such as Isaac Newton and Robert Hooke. However, the reign also witnessed two major disasters. In 1665, London suffered the Great Plague, which killed tens of thousands of people. Only a year later, in 1666, the Great Fire of London destroyed much of the medieval city. Although devastating, the fire created opportunities to rebuild London with wider streets and stronger buildings. After Charles II died, his brother James II became king in 1685. James openly supported Catholicism, alarming many Protestant politicians and nobles. Fearing the establishment of a permanent Catholic monarchy, leading members of Parliament invited William of Orange, the Protestant ruler of the Netherlands and husband of James's daughter Mary, to intervene. In 1688, William landed in England with little resistance. James II fled the country, and Parliament declared that he had effectively abandoned the throne. This largely bloodless transfer of power became known as the Glorious Revolution. The Glorious Revolution transformed Britain's political system. In 1689, William III and Mary II accepted the Bill of Rights, which limited the powers of the monarchy and strengthened Parliament. The document guaranteed regular parliamentary sessions, prohibited the king from suspending laws without Parliament's consent, and protected important legal rights for citizens. The Glorious Revolution established the principle of constitutional monarchy, in which the monarch ruled according to law and in partnership with Parliament rather than through absolute power. These constitutional changes became one of the foundations of modern British democracy and later influenced democratic movements across the world. By the end of the 17th century, England had experienced dramatic religious reform, political revolution, civil war, scientific advancement, and constitutional transformation. These events prepared the kingdom for its next great chapter: the political union with Scotland, the birth of Great Britain, the Industrial Revolution, and the rise of the largest empire the world had ever seen. Part 4: The Birth of Great Britain, the Industrial Revolution, the British Empire, and the Victorian Age. The Glorious Revolution of 1688 permanently changed the relationship between the monarchy and Parliament. With the Bill of Rights of 1689 in place, England had become a constitutional monarchy, where the king or queen ruled according to law rather than absolute authority. This new political stability allowed the nation to focus on economic development, scientific innovation, overseas trade, and stronger cooperation with its northern neighbour, Scotland. These changes would soon transform Britain into one of the most powerful countries in history. At the beginning of the 18th century, England and Scotland remained separate kingdoms, although they shared the same monarch. Each had its own parliament, legal system, and government. However, years of political negotiations, economic interests, and concerns about security convinced leaders in both countries that a closer union would benefit them. In 1707, the Acts of Union were passed by the English and Scottish parliaments. These acts officially united the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of Scotland into a single nation known as the Kingdom of Great Britain. A new parliament was established in Westminster, London, while Scotland retained its own legal system, education system, and Presbyterian church. The union created a stronger political and economic partnership that would shape British history for centuries. The early 18th century became known as the Georgian era, named after the four kings called George who ruled Britain from 1714 onward. Under the Hanoverian dynasty, Parliament became increasingly powerful while the role of the monarchy gradually became more constitutional. During this period, Britain developed one of the world's earliest cabinet governments, and the position of Prime Minister emerged as an essential part of national leadership. Sir Robert Walpole, often regarded as Britain's first Prime Minister, helped establish many traditions that continue in British politics today. Britain's economy expanded rapidly during the Georgian period. International trade flourished through growing commercial links with Europe, North America, Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. British merchants transported goods across the oceans, while ports such as London, Liverpool, Bristol, and Glasgow became some of the busiest trading centres in the world. Banking institutions, insurance companies, and financial markets also developed rapidly, making London one of the world's leading financial capitals. As Britain's wealth increased, competition with other European powers also intensified. Throughout the 18th century, Britain fought several major wars against France and Spain for control of overseas territories and trade routes. These conflicts were not simply European wars, they were global struggles fought across North America, the Caribbean, India, Africa, and the oceans. One of the most important conflicts was the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763. Historians often describe it as the first true global war because battles occurred on several continents. Britain emerged victorious, gaining control of Canada from France and significantly expanding its influence in India. These victories established Britain as one of the world's leading colonial powers. However, Britain's growing empire also faced serious challenges. In North America, 13 British colonies became increasingly dissatisfied with taxation and political control imposed by the British government. The slogan, "No taxation without representation," became the rallying cry of many American colonists. The tensions eventually erupted into the American Revolutionary War in 1775. Despite Britain's powerful military, the colonies successfully fought for independence with assistance from France and other European allies. In 1783, Britain officially recognized the independence of the United States of America through the Treaty of Paris. Although losing the American colonies was a major setback, Britain quickly redirected its attention toward Asia, Africa, and the Pacific. Instead of weakening permanently, the British Empire continued expanding across the globe during the late 18th and 19th centuries. One of the most significant developments during this period occurred in India. Through the British East India Company, Britain gradually expanded its influence over large parts of the Indian subcontinent. Initially established as a trading company, the East India Company eventually became a major political and military power, governing millions of people and generating enormous wealth for Britain. At the same time, another revolution was quietly transforming British society, not a political revolution but an economic and technological one. This was the Industrial Revolution, which began in Britain during the second half of the 18th century and forever changed the modern world. Several factors helped Britain become the birthplace of industrialization. The country possessed abundant supplies of coal and iron, a stable political system, access to overseas markets, growing financial institutions, and a culture that encouraged scientific innovation and entrepreneurship. These advantages allowed inventors and business leaders to develop new machines and manufacturing techniques that dramatically increased productivity. One of the earliest breakthroughs came in the textile industry. Machines such as the spinning jenny, the water frame, and the spinning mule revolutionized cloth production, allowing factories to produce far more textiles than traditional hand weavers. The invention and improvement of the steam engine by James Watt provided a powerful new source of energy that could operate factories, pumps, and transportation systems. As factories multiplied across Britain, cities such as Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, Sheffield, and Glasgow grew rapidly. Millions of people left rural villages in search of employment in industrial towns. Urban populations expanded at an unprecedented rate, transforming Britain from an agricultural society into an industrial nation. The Industrial Revolution also revolutionized transportation. Engineers built canals to move heavy goods efficiently, while the development of the railway transformed travel and commerce. The opening of the Liverpool and Manchester Railway in 1830 demonstrated the enormous potential of steam-powered transportation. Railways connected cities, reduced travel times, encouraged trade, and stimulated economic growth throughout Britain. Steam-powered ships also transformed international commerce. Goods could now be transported faster and more reliably across the world's oceans, strengthening Britain's global trading network. British manufactured products reached markets across Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Americas, making the country known as the workshop of the world. However, industrialization also created serious social problems. Factory workers often endured extremely long hours in dangerous conditions for very low wages. Women and children frequently worked alongside men in mines and factories, where accidents and poor health were common. Overcrowded cities suffered from pollution, inadequate housing, poor sanitation, and outbreaks of disease. These hardships inspired social reformers to campaign for better working conditions. Throughout the 19th century, Parliament introduced factory acts, limiting child labor, improving workplace safety, and regulating working hours. Educational reforms expanded access to schooling, while public health measures gradually improved sanitation and reduced disease in rapidly growing cities. The early 19th century was also dominated by the Napoleonic Wars. Following the French Revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte rose to power in France and attempted to dominate Europe. Britain became one of his strongest opponents, leading coalitions against French expansion. Britain's greatest naval victory occurred in 1805 at the Battle of Trafalgar, where Admiral Horatio Nelson defeated the combined French and Spanish fleets. Although Nelson was killed during the battle, his victory secured British control of the seas for more than a century. Naval supremacy protected Britain's trade routes and allowed the empire to expand with relatively little threat from rival European powers. Napoleon was finally defeated in 1815 at the Battle of Waterloo, where British forces under the Duke of Wellington, together with their allies, ended the Napoleonic Wars. Britain's victory established it as Europe's leading military and naval power. Another major milestone came in 1801, when the Act of Union united Great Britain with the Kingdom of Ireland, creating the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland. Although political tensions remained within Ireland, this union further expanded the territory governed from Westminster. In 1837, Queen Victoria ascended the throne, beginning one of the longest and most influential reigns in British history. The Victorian era became a symbol of prosperity, innovation, and imperial expansion. Victoria ruled for 63 years, during which Britain reached the height of its global influence. During Victoria's reign, the British Empire expanded to become the largest empire in history. At its greatest extent, it governed nearly 1/4 of the Earth's land surface and population. British territories stretched across Canada, Australia, New Zealand, India, large parts of Africa, the Caribbean, and numerous islands throughout the world. The famous phrase, "the empire on which the sun never sets," reflected the reality that daylight was always shining somewhere within Britain's vast overseas possessions. The Victorian period also witnessed extraordinary advances in science, medicine, engineering, and communication. Inventors developed the telegraph, allowing messages to travel across continents within minutes instead of weeks. Railways expanded throughout Britain and across many parts of the empire. Bridges, tunnels, and iron ships demonstrated remarkable engineering achievements. The Great Exhibition of 1851, held in London's magnificent Crystal Palace, showcased Britain's industrial achievements and technological leadership. Visitors from around the world admired British inventions, machinery, and manufactured products, confirming Britain's position as the world's leading industrial nation. Victorian Britain also became home to many influential thinkers and scientists. Charles Darwin published On the Origin of Species in 1859, fundamentally changing scientific understanding of evolution. Michael Faraday made groundbreaking discoveries in electricity and electromagnetism, while Isambard Kingdom Brunel designed revolutionary bridges, railways, and steamships that transformed engineering. Education expanded significantly during the Victorian period. New schools and universities helped improve literacy, while newspapers became widely available to ordinary people. Literature flourished with authors such as Charles Dickens, whose novels highlighted both the achievements and social inequalities of industrial Britain. Despite its success, the British Empire also faced criticism. Colonial expansion often involved military conquest, political domination, and economic exploitation. Many local populations resisted British rule, leading to conflicts such as the Indian Rebellion of 1857, which resulted in the British government taking direct control of India from the East India Company. This marked the beginning of the British Raj, with Queen Victoria later becoming Empress of India in 1876. By the end of Queen Victoria's reign in 1901, Britain had become the world's greatest industrial, financial, naval, and imperial power. Its economy influenced global trade, its navy protected international shipping routes, and its empire extended across nearly every continent. London stood at the center of world finance, diplomacy, and commerce. Yet beneath this extraordinary success, new challenges were emerging. Germany and the United States were rapidly becoming powerful industrial rivals. Nationalist movements within parts of the empire demanded greater independence, while political tensions across Europe continued to increase. As the 19th century came to a close, few people realized that the 20th century would bring two devastating world wars: the decline of the British Empire and the transformation of Britain into the modern United Kingdom. The History of the United Kingdom, Part 5. The Rise of Modern Britain, Tudor Power, Civil War, and the Birth of the British Empire, 1485 to 1800. After centuries of change, conflict, and transformation, Britain entered a new era that would completely reshape its identity and influence around the world. The medieval period was coming to an end, and a powerful new dynasty was about to rise. In 1485, after the Battle of Bosworth Field, Henry Tudor defeated Richard III and became King Henry VII, beginning the Tudor dynasty. His victory ended the Wars of the Roses, a long and destructive struggle between the houses of Lancaster and York. Henry VII worked to strengthen the monarchy, rebuild the economy, and bring stability to England after years of civil conflict. His careful leadership created the foundation for one of the most famous periods in British history. Henry VII was succeeded by his son, Henry VIII, in 1509. Henry VIII became one of the most well-known monarchs in English history because of his dramatic decisions and his powerful personality. During his reign, England experienced a major religious transformation. When the Pope refused to allow Henry VIII to end his marriage, the king broke away from the Roman Catholic Church and established the Church of England. This event, known as the English Reformation, changed the religious and political structure of England forever. The king became the head of the new church, and many monasteries were closed as their wealth was transferred to the crown. The Tudor period reached its most famous moment during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, who ruled from 1558 to 1603. Elizabeth's reign is often called the Golden Age of England because of the growth of culture, exploration, and national confidence. During this time, famous writers such as William Shakespeare created some of the greatest works in English literature. England also became a major naval power. In 1588, the English Navy defeated the Spanish Armada, a huge fleet sent by Spain to invade England. This victory increased England's confidence and marked the beginning of its rise as a global maritime power. After the Tudor dynasty ended, England entered another period of major political struggle. In the 17th century, tensions grew between the monarchy and Parliament. King Charles I believed strongly in royal authority, while Parliament demanded more control over government decisions and taxation. These disagreements eventually led to the English Civil War in 1642. The conflict divided the country, with supporters of the king fighting against supporters of Parliament. Parliament's forces, led by Oliver Cromwell, defeated the king's army, and in 1649 Charles I was executed. England became a republic known as the Commonwealth, with Oliver Cromwell as its leading figure. However, the republic did not last long. After Cromwell's death, the monarchy was restored in 1660, and Charles II became king. The restoration brought back traditional royal rule, but the relationship between the monarchy and Parliament continued to change. In 1688, the Glorious Revolution took place when Parliament invited William of Orange and Mary to take the throne. This event created a new balance of power between the monarch and Parliament. The English Bill of Rights of 1689 limited royal authority and helped establish the foundations of modern constitutional monarchy. During the 18th century, Britain experienced enormous changes in society, economy, and technology. The Industrial Revolution began, transforming Britain from an agricultural society into a nation of factories, machines, and growing cities. New inventions improved production, transportation, and trade. The steam engine became one of the most important developments of this period, helping industries grow rapidly. Cities expanded as people moved from rural areas to work in factories, creating a new industrial society that would influence the entire world. At the same time, Britain's overseas influence continued to expand. Through naval strength, trade networks, and colonies, Britain became one of the most powerful nations on Earth. The British Empire grew across continents, including parts of North America, the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia. British ships traveled across the oceans, connecting different parts of the world through trade and exploration. However, the expansion of the empire was also connected with conflicts, competition with other European powers, and complex consequences for many societies around the world. One of the biggest challenges Britain faced during this period was the American Revolution. In the late 18th century, 13 British colonies in North America rebelled against British rule. After years of war, the colonies gained independence and formed the United States of America in 1776. Although Britain lost control of these territories, it continued to expand its influence in other parts of the world. By the year 1800, Britain had transformed into a powerful modern nation. The country had a stronger parliament, a growing industrial economy, a powerful navy, and an expanding empire. The changes of the Tudor era, the Civil War, the constitutional reforms, and the Industrial Revolution created the foundations of the Britain that would dominate global affairs in the 19th century. The next chapter of British history would bring the height of the empire, the Victorian era, and Britain's transformation into one of the world's greatest industrial powers,